Today is the day that I've been looking forward to for 7 weeks. The kids are finally back in school. And it got me thinking, how does going back to school look like financially and practically in Scotland compared to the United States? If you're new here, I'm Peter, and 6 years ago, I left Oklahoma and moved to Scotland. I make videos comparing life and culture here in Scotland to what I knew back in the US. So if that kind of thing interests you, I hope you stick around. Kids are probably one of the most expensive things you can own. That's probably a bad way of putting it, but it is universal on both sides of the Atlantic that kids are expensive. But I found that the level of how expensive it is much different in Scotland than it would be in Oklahoma. And one of those aspects is your back to school costs. I have twins. They'll be 7 in a couple months, and it means that every expense I have is usually doubled and in some cases quadrupled because of sometimes I'm needing to buy more sets of things based on them going back and forth between me and their mom's house. Today they started primary 2, which would probably be the equivalent of first grade in elementary school in the US. If you're in the United States, you typically get a shopping list from the school or maybe directly from the teacher themselves, which tells you what you need to buy. These lists can end up being super specific and sometimes even specify exact brands of pencils or things like that, which you might have to provide for your kids. My opinion on this is that it is ridiculous. Would you be okay with it if you went to your job and they required you to buy your own paper and pens and hand soap, or buy your own scissors if you needed them to do your job? No, you would expect that your employer provides those for you. Yet when it comes to school in the United States, you have to pay for all of those things and more. And if you're a teacher, it's even worse because many American teachers have to literally spend sometimes up to $1,000 per year or more out of their own pockets for additional supplies for the classroom because their employer refuses to pay for it. The average spend for school supplies in the US is $885 per child per school year. And it includes things like clothing, books, technology, and general school supplies like pencil and glue. And I realize this is an overall average. Some people spend way less and some people spend more. And I'm sure you can spend a significant amount less than $885 per child, but still that number is outrageously high. And other than clothing, it should be zero. To put it into perspective, here in Scotland, my list of school supplies that I had to buy for the kids was basically their clothing. In the States, you'll usually only see school uniforms as part of a private school, not a public school. Public schools will have a dress code, but not a specific school uniform. Whereas here, as far as I know, all schools have a school uniform. If you're wondering about my terminology, it can be a bit confusing at first if you're an immigrant like me because the term public school basically has the exact opposite meaning here in Scotland than it does in the United States. An American public school would be called a state school here, or usually just something like primary and secondary school. But what you'd call a private school in the States would usually be called a public school here, or sometimes a private or independent school. If you're not used to it, it can perhaps be a bit confusing, so please bear with me if I accidentally swap my terminology around sometimes. For my local primary school, the uniform is basically just gray or black trousers, skirts, or shorts with white or red polos and either a red or gray jumper. If you're in America, you'd call it a sweater. You aren't required to wear clothes with the school emblem embroidered on them, and really the main restriction is that they don't want you to wear things with prominent brand names on them. I've established that the overall back to school shopping experience is much simpler and cheaper here than back in the States, but to go a step further, Scotland also has amazing ways to help people who might be struggling to make ends meet. Speaking of helping people, I hope you're enjoying this video so far, and if you are, please hit that like button. It really does help me in my quest for global domination with 100 million subscribers. And if you want to even go a step further, there's also a link in the description where you can buy me a coffee. Anyways, Every single council area in Scotland provides what's called a school clothing grant. It's only for low-income families on certain benefits, but it's basically a payment you can apply for once a year to help cover the costs of your back-to-school shopping. I think that's an amazing use of my tax money. And you might be wondering, the United States is, on paper, a super wealthy country. Surely they have some sort of systems in place like this to help poor people educate their kids, right? No. A few individual states do something kind of similar, but there is no US federal equivalent to this. And the kind of alternate thing they've done, which, while a little bit helpful, it really falls short of what you'd experience here. About 19 states, like Oklahoma, where I grew up, do what's called a tax-free weekend. They basically pick one weekend in the summer where they waive the sales tax on clothing and shoes that are less than $100. But that's it. It doesn't count for clothing that's designed for athletic activities or protective use, and it doesn't apply to any other school supplies like backpacks or notebooks. So you can get a 6% savings on your school clothing, but that's it. Whereas here in Scotland, they wouldn't even need to consider something like that because all clothing and shoes that are sized for kids under 14 have no VAT or sales tax ever. When your kids are at school, they've got to eat. And in Scotland, from primary 1 through primary 5, all school meals are completely free, regardless of your income level or social status. It's kind of cool. I have an app, and every Sunday I sit down with my kids and we go through 4 or 5 choices of meal for each day of the next week and order what they want to eat. Does the US have something like this? Well, actually, yes. 9 states provide universal free school meals for their kids. And the rest of them get federally funded meals with the National School Lunch Program, but it's only free if you're below 130% of the poverty line. If you're up to 185% of the poverty line, you get a discounted rate. But if you're above that, you're paying full price, which averages out to about $3 per lunch. I still have another 4 years until my kids are old enough to not qualify for free lunches. And to be fair, I looked it up, and it appears that here in Scotland, the average price is actually about the same as in the States. But regardless of pricing, I can pretty much guarantee you that the nutritional value of the school lunches here is much better than in the States. And of course, when that time comes, I always have the option of providing a packed lunch. The next big difference is the start time and length of school days and how it might cost you in time. In the States, school usually starts at around 7:30 to 8 a.m. and goes until about 2 or 3 p.m. My local school starts at 9 a.m. and finishes at 3 p.m. Although I think in some councils they can go a little bit later. I'm not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination, so I do like that I don't have to have the kids ready and out the door for a 7:30 a.m. start. And I am also fortunate in the fact that I'm self-employed with flexibility on the hours and specific times that I work. But this can be a struggle for many people trying to balance their work schedule and the school runs. Compared to the States, it is much easier here to work with your employer and have the time to go drop off or pick up your kids from school. But I think a key difference is that if you have a standard 9-to-5 job, in the US, you can drop your kids off in the morning before you go to work, and you only need to figure out how to get them home in the afternoon. Whereas here, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you have to figure out how to work that schedule into both the drop off and the pickup times of your school. Last year, I didn't really know what I was doing and kind of went all out on the uniforms and extras. I spent about 300 pounds or so, although to be fair, about 100 of that was just on really nice fancy backpacks. I got multiples of every single possible uniform combination and too many extras so they would have them at both my house and their mom's house. But what did I spend this year? I think I've learned from my mistakes and was quite a bit more conservative with what I spent. My son is easy because it's just trousers, a polo, and a jumper. But my daughter decided that she is extremely picky with what she will wear. So this year, I only bought her the specific tights, polos, and the specific jumper and dress combination that she wanted. They're reusing their backpacks from last year, and instead of trying to buy so many copies of every single possible uniform combination, I've bought just the basics. New shoes, new water bottle, new wellies, and about 4 copies of one uniform set for each of them. Their school shirt colors are either red or white, and this year I'm not buying any white polo shirts. Those things get covered in stains within a week or so. So luckily this isn't Star Trek, because it is red shirts only from here on out, with just a little bit of a buffer, since there's a good chance I'll end up having to buy another set of uniforms before the end of the school year anyways, once they have another growth spurt. That makes my total come out to 143 pounds and 15 pence for both kids, which is monumentally less than it would be if we were still in the States. Yeah, the numbers will go up a bit, because I'm sure I'll have to at least replace a couple shirts and trousers, but if this was the States, it would be the exact same thing. And I'm also really glad I don't have to deal with buying clear backpacks or bulletproof inserts or anything like that. If you have kids, let me know in the comments how much you spent on back to school this year. And if you enjoyed this video, you might want to check out this one where I talk about 12 unexpected parenting culture shocks with moving to Scotland. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.